All right, so this lesson is called word form. Now, this lesson, I want to forewarn you, it's not a terribly long lesson, but characteristically it is a rather difficult lesson because it deals mostly with words rather than with numbers and with math, so to speak, like we're used to dealing with. And so traditionally, students find it very difficult. In class, we're going to spend a couple days on it, but you need to know that you should come back to the lesson often to practice. You're going to get a lot of different sheets in class with practice problems. In fact, you'll probably get 5 or 6 different practice sheets in class with practice problems. And so you'll have a lot of resources to go to, but make sure you come back and reference the lesson often, especially since it's a pretty short lesson. So your goal for this lesson is I can write expressions verbally. And so we're going to be dealing with something called word form in this lesson. All right, so to begin, what we want to do is we want to identify words that signal to us addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, or something that means equal to. Okay, and so to do that, I have come up with some words, and we are going to essentially categorize them into these 5 quadrants. Okay, so minus is going to go over here with subtraction. Times is going to go with multiplication. These are some that you're familiar with. Sum is the answer to an addition problem. More than is going to be addition. Okay, fewer than, which is the opposite of more than, is going to be subtraction. Product means the answer to a multiplication problem, so that's going to be multiplication. When you decrease something, you're taking away, so that's going to be subtraction. The opposite of decrease is increase, and so that is going to be addition. If you say that something was something, that is going to be equals. Now, this equals part here, I'm not terribly concerned with right now. This is more going to come into play in our next unit with equations. So I really don't want you to worry too much about this beyond categorizing the words. But we're just finding words that signal the word equals. Okay, we're really not going to deal with equals in this unit, but it's good just to get the juices flowing. So the word was is going to signal equals. The word are is also going to signal equals. The word is also going to signal equals. The word gives is also going to signal equals. The word were is also going to signal equals. Okay, per is going to be division. Okay, like $17 per person. Okay, ratio, which is a whole unit that we do later, is going to signal division. Quotient is the answer to a division problem. Percent is going to be division. Less is going to be subtraction. Sold for, that is going to be equals. Combined is going to be addition, and out of is going to be, out of 7 is going to be division. 7 out of 8. Yep, that's going to be division. Okay, so again, we're just starting to categorize these words, but they're going to become very important in just a minute. Not so much the equals, but we can get the juices flowing for the next unit. Okay, all right, so how do all those words come together? Well, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you the word form of an expression, and you're going to give me the algebraic form of it. Okay, and let me show you what that means. 5 more than a number. Okay, so what I did is I just gave you a phrase. It's not quite a sentence because it's not a complete sentence with a capital letter and a period. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to annotate this sentence. Okay, so we're going to break it down. So this is 5, that's the number 5. More than, okay, that means plus. Okay, and then anytime you see this phrase here, a number, that means that you can pick any variable that you want. I like to do X. Some people like to do the first letter of their first name, J, K, M, W. You really can pick whatever letter you want. Sometimes it'll tell you the specific letter to use, which we'll see in number 2, but it's up to you. Okay? So, 5 more than a number X. So your answer here is 5 plus X. Now, because it's addition, 5 plus X and X plus 5 is the same thing. Just like 3 plus 2 and 2 plus 3 is the same thing. Okay? All right, let's look at number 2. The product of 5 and G. Okay? So the product, okay, that to me means multiplication, and I'm going to put a dot there for multiplication, of 5. Okay, so there's 5. And then G, so it's telling me which letter to use, G, okay? Now remember, there's a couple different ways that you can write multiplication. Now when we write multiplication with numbers and letters though, there's really only one correct format to write it in, okay? And when we did the previous lesson, the introduction to expressions, you saw how the number went in front of the letter, okay? And so the way to write it is like this. They're next door to each other, which means multiplication, okay? But the number, the coefficient, always goes in front of the variable, so 5G, and that shows multiplication, okay? Number 3. A number decreased by 11. Okay, so number 3 is tricky. Subtraction ones are tricky. So let's take a look at this. All right, so a number, that means that I can pick any letter I want. So this time I'm going to use Y. Okay, decreased, that means subtraction. Okay, by 11. Okay, so that's the number 11. Now here's why subtraction is tricky. With addition, we said we could do 5 plus X or X plus 5. But with subtraction, 3 minus 2 and 2 minus 3 are different things. So is it Y minus 11 or 11 minus Y? And it's not necessarily the order that it gives it to you in the problem. You have to really, really read the problem. A number decreased by 11. So this letter here, Y, is being decreased by 11. So in this case, it is Y minus 11, or whichever letter you choose to use. All right, let's look at number 4. Okay, 17 less than H. Okay, so here I have 17. Less than is going to tell me subtraction. And then my variable is going to be H. Now again, I have subtraction. Remember, they're tricky. So I have to figure out the order. 17 less than H. So in this case, I'm taking 17 away from H. So it's H minus 17. So in this case, it was flip-flopped from how it was written in the problem. Now, some of you might be looking at 3 and 4 and thinking, oh, okay, so the variable always goes first. No, it doesn't. That was just a coincidence in how I wrote these. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. The quotient of 20 and Y. Okay, so the quotient, that is division of 20. Okay, so 20 and Y. All right, so all we're going to do is do 20 divided by Y. Now, if you want to get super fancy, remember that a fraction bar is also division, so you can do 20 fraction bar Y if you want to do it that way too. All right, so now for practice, I want us to go the other way as well. So now I'm going to give you the algebraic form, and I want you to give me the word form. And again, I'm going to go back to the slide that we just used. You can feel free to use some of these words that we came up with or that we categorized, okay? So let's look at this one. So this one we can say the sum of, because we're doing addition, X and 5. And you want to make sure that you write out the word 5. Okay, now this is a subtraction one, so we want to make sure that we word it correctly. So remember, G is being taken away from 3. Okay, so we can write G less than 3. All right, let's try the next one. So here we have division. Okay, so we could say y divided by 5, or we could say the quotient of y and 5. I like the quotient. The quotient of y and 5. Okay, now here we have 12 and r next door to each other, and that's going to be multiplication. Okay, so we can say, what's the answer to a multiplication problem? That's going to be the product. So we can say the product of 12 and r. Okay, and then here we have another subtraction problem, and remember we have to be very careful the way that we word those. So we can say, let's use another word. So we can say difference. Okay, the difference. Oops. Between W and 4. Now if you use this wording, the difference between, then you can just put them in order, W and 4. You can take them in the order that is given to you in the problem. All right, so let's try some of these examples here. So always annotate them, okay? So a number plus 5. So remember, when it says a number, you can pick the letter. I'm going to use X. Plus means plus, and then 5 is going to be 5. So this can be X plus 5, or because it's addition, you can also switch it around to 5 plus X. Either one of these will work. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Subtract y from 5. Okay, remember the subtraction ones are tricky. Okay, so subtract means minus. We have y, and then we have 5. So subtract y from 5. So I'm taking y away from 5. So that's going to be 5 minus y, because I'm taking y away from 5. And remember to always box your answer. Okay, let's take a look at this one. 6 more than a number. So I have 6. More than means plus. And whenever I see a number, that means I can choose my own letter. I'm going to use W. So here I have 6 plus W, or because it's addition, I can flip it around and do W plus 6. Okay. Next one, 3 times as many as a number. Okay, so I have 3 times, which is going to be multiplication, and then times as many as, and then a number. So I get to pick my letter. I'm going to do K this time. So remember, when you have times with a letter, you have to put them next door to each other, and the number has to go first. So this is going to be written as 3K, or any other letter that you choose to use. Okay, twice the difference of a number and 7. So we're going to get a little bit more complicated here, okay? So twice means 2 times, okay? The difference of means subtraction. A number, so I'm going to use X, and 7. So 2 times the difference of a number and 7. We're going to now have 2 parts here, okay? So we're going to have 2 times, and I'm going to use the dot for times, okay? The difference of a number and 7. When you have 2 different parts here to an expression, you want to put one of the parts in parentheses. And it's usually going to be, well, let me rephrase that. Hold on one second. So twice the difference of a number and 7. So the difference of a number and 7 is going to go in parentheses, okay? Because it's going to be twice all of this. So I have to solve the difference of a number and 7 first. So the difference of a number and 7, remember when it says difference of, you just take it in order. So x minus 7, okay? So it's x minus 7, but then it's 2 times all of that. And you have to use parentheses. If you did not use parentheses, then you would end up with something like this, okay? Using parentheses is going to force you to have to do the parentheses first, order of operations. All right, let's look at another one. That should say divided. All right, 54 divided by the sum of 9 and a number. Okay, so 54 divided by is division. The sum of is plus 9 and a number, and we're going to use W. Okay, so 54 divided by all of this. Okay, so 54 divided by, now how do I show the sum of 9 and a number? Well, 9 plus W, or you could do W plus 9, but it's 54 divided by all of this, so I have to put it in parentheses. Okay, let's take a look at this. The sum of 29 and C minus 22. Okay, so the sum of, that's plus, 29 and C minus, that's subtraction, 22. Okay, so now that minus 22 is separate and it looks like it's on the end. Okay, so let's do the sum of 29 and C first. So 29 plus C, so all of that together minus 22. Okay, let's look at this one. The sum of 3 and the product of P and 7. Okay, so the sum of, that's plus, 3, and the product of, that's times, P and 7. Well, I know to show the product of P and 7, I have to do 7P. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm adding the sum of 3 and 7P. So 3 plus 7P. And again, if these are seeming confusing, it's okay. We're going to do tons of practice in class. Okay, 18 less than a number. 18 less than is minus, and a number, let's use J. Okay, now let's figure out the order. 18 less than J. So I'm taking it away from J. So J minus 18. All right, we're going to stop the lesson here. I promise you loads and loads of practice in class, but ask me if you have any questions.